Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for...
You get COVID. And you get COVID. And I got COVID. UnSpun.
Oh my God.
It's like, I thought I was immune. I thought I've been walking around like, look at me. I don't get COVID. I'm immune to this. Then I woke up on it was Monday. I started a little tickle in my throat. Oh God. And then Tuesday, aches. Wednesday, tested positive.
And how do you feel now?
I am. Well, it's just like a bad cold for me. So it's not bad. It's just annoying. The isolation, you gotta partition the house. And my son Quinn's looks like he's got it too. Amanda's already had it. So it's not news to most people because a lot of people have had it. Everybody has a different experience. But I think mainly it's quarantining yourself, especially if you live in a house with
At least it's not nice outside.
Oh God, the weather! What the hell?
I got the fireplace going over here on my TV.
I see that.
It's June 16th, dude.
It's insane.
Cold.
It's insane. I'm wearing my woolly slippers. I'm at home and I'm in this little.
Okay, for those watching,
where's mine?
I got my slippers on. We're showing off our slippers, guys. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, I got my slippers.
Okay, so I'm patient. I thought I was patient zero with COVID. Like I think I got it before they were testing. Like I'd love to be able to get an antibody test. I mean, but what does it matter? So far, though, I haven't experienced it since the start of the pandemic. I have not had a cold or a flu. And the times that I thought maybe I'm not feeling altogether great, we didn't have rapid tests and I couldn't get tested. Right. I would just stay home and the next day I would be fine. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's not it. I don't know. But I'm kind of patient zero. I don't think patient zero and then patient 500 million. My 14-year-old son has not tested positive ever, and he's been tested probably 6 times. He has allergies, though. And my significant other, Brian, has had it, and he was symptomatic. Yeah. I want to ask you, do you mind if I pick your brain about it a little bit?
Yeah, that's sure. I mean, okay. Guinea pig.
Let's do the unspun thing, though, like legit.
Yeah. Okay.
When you got the tickle in your throat, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you're like, did you have a rush of like, or did the vaccination piece of the puzzle, knowing you're fully vaccinated, make you feel safer? Or
oh God, yeah. I mean, and because Amanda had gone through it, and everybody in my office, and everybody in my family, and my other 2 kids, everybody's had it around me. So that's why I thought, oh, maybe I'm immune. I didn't worry. I just knew it. You just kind of go. I thought, oh, maybe I had my high school reunion on Saturday in Langley. There's a few anti-vaxxers in my grad class that have been come at me on Facebook and Twitter.
Really?
And so
how was that?
Well, I didn't talk to them really. But it was a crowded room, 100 people jammed in Fort Langley there. So pretty sure that's where I got it. But that you can't blame anyone specifically. You choose to do these things, right? So, and I would do it again. It was fun. It's my 40th.
Wow. Look at you, young man. You're making it look good, George-Affleck. You're making it look good. Your birthday, of course, is October 15th, 2022, which is Civic Election Day. We got to we'll get into the politics behind that in a second. But let's talk about COVID with regard to travel, because it's a huge move by the feds.
I got a trip coming up, so I'm very on point with it, like watching what's going on, because I'm going south.
Stop for a second, because your technical issue here, your microphone is a little hot, and when you got into it right there, you broke out a little bit, so turn it down just a little bit.
All right, I get these technical issues in the old house. I'll push it away from me.
This is UnSpunPodcast. Yeah, it's over-modulating a bit. That's better. Okay, just for our listeners, so they're not blowing out their speakers.
Yeah, wakey, everybody.
Much better. Okay, so you've got a trip coming up. Where are you going? Are you going to tell where you're going? No.
Peru.
Wow.
Picchu. Yeah. It's a bucket listy kind of thing. But one of my buddies turning a big age. And so it's a group of us going there. My friend Rob owns a travel agency, Pivot Travel. If you want to use a travel agency, I recommend
Pivot
Travel. Pivot. exactly. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's quite a complicated trip, and it's very But we're going through Mexico, so there's no restrictions in Mexico. So flying from Canada to Mexico down to Peru is quite easy, actually, from a COVID point of view. Going through the States, although they just changed their rules, so now you can fly. It's less strict down there now. So it's really hard to keep up with these things, to be honest. I mean,
It is a
Canada
little
has
bit, but
changed
and
their rules.
that's the cautionary tale here, right? Because
Yeah.
the federal government just announced this week that they are dropping, the federal government is dropping the vaccine mandate for domestic flight and rail, as well as international departures. Now,
Yeah.
international travelers coming to Canada will still need to be fully vaccinated and show proof of that, which is where it gets kind of like, oh, okay, complicated. But mindful of this and all the conversations I've been filling in for Mike Smith this week on CKNW and talking to some travel experts. I actually talked to a former COO of Air Canada, who's a travel expert now and a great guest. Duncan D is his name. He came on, and it's like one of the big cautionary pieces of this. If you're traveling anywhere, you should make yourself aware of what the rules are at your destination. Imagine getting somewhere
Mm-hmm.
where you're maybe not allowed to arrive without proof of vaccination. Even though you were allowed to depart, you weren't allowed to arrive, or you're not allowed to get on your carrier because it's going through a country that doesn't
Yeah.
allow you to fly within that country. Like,
Super
there
complicated.
are
Yep.
super complex pieces of this puzzle, but I want to make sure that we have a couple of things on the table here for our listeners. If you love to cruise, nothing's changing on cruise ships. You must be fully vaccinated and prove it to be a passenger or to work on a cruise ship.
Mm-hmm.
Mask mandates remain in place on all air travel and rail travel and buses in Canada.
By the way, 2 people I know who went on cruises recently both got COVID on those cruises, different cruises.
Are you kidding
They
me?
both got COVID, yes. And
I
so
mean,
one was at the end of it, and the other one was right in the middle, and they were stuck in their room for the entire time.
oh my God, that is hell.
I know. They only had one book with them. Anyways,
Oh,
they
Jesus.
watched all the James Bond movies. I think that's what they did for their time. Their 4
I
days.
cannot imagine being stuck in the inside cabin.
They had a window.
I would lose my mind. Oh, thank God. Because
Luckily.
people do go on cruises saying, wow, how much time are we going to spend in our room? Oh my God, those floating
Get a
petri dishes.
room with a view. Yeah.
Get a room with a view just in case. So just making sure that we're clear on how those federal COVID rules impact us here in BC. Obviously at YVR, they made a real point, George, in the announcement, because we carried it live while I was on the show on CKNW. They carried it live, and the feds did out and out state that this change, this suspension, so they reserve the right to bring these all back if we have a COVID season that's exponentially worse in the fall, who knows. But they said this is not about the chaos in airports. This is not about what's happened at Pearson airports, that viral video that went around standing in line. It's not about that. While it might ease it a little bit, because those who were told that they had to be fully vaccinated in order to work at an airport will now be able, let's say a baggage handler.
Oh, but how many could that be? That's not going to be that many.
Exactly.
They just don't have the employees. They don't exist. I think that's the problem. I mean, I had 2 people I picked up at the airport last week. Amanda came back from the UK visiting her family, and then her sister came back later that same day. And it took forever to get through the system. Baggage, it took forever. And because there's just not enough people handling all the stuff. And then just the border across the whole, going through customs, that was slow. Even with Nexus, didn't matter. It's just chaos. And the lineup went up. If you've ever been in the international arrivals, there's an escalator, come down this escalator, and it was up the escalator and down the hall. I've never seen it like that before.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
All the way through customs and up that escalator and down the hall. Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah. That's like that windowed sky bridge place. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about there.
So it's and then, there's people, we've got 5% unemployment right now. People don't want the jobs. Even if they're good paying jobs, they can't find people. They got to train them if they find them. They've had job postings I've seen for the most amazing jobs that when I was in my 20s, I would have killed for.
Right. I hear you on
And
that
they
one.
can't get anybody to apply. So even removing these COVID things, looking at sitting in that international arrivals, they have that little section where you have to get tested, the random testing section, still there. But I think they saw 3 people go through it. That's not
But they're
enough
not
to make
using
a
that
big difference.
anymore. They're
Yeah,
ending
so
that
that's
as
what they took
well.
away, right? Yeah, they took that away. But that
Yeah.
wasn't affecting, there's only 3 people I saw in there. So
Yeah.
it's not like they were putting hundreds through there.
They've pulled my parents, my 83 and 84-year-old parents over twice.
What?
It's by number. And they're like, today's your lucky day. And my stepdad's
They
like,
should buy a
really?
lottery ticket.
I know,
Jeez.
right? I mean, they got a good attitude
Wow.
about it. How are we feeling about the Cullen Commission, a Cullen inquiry report that finally dropped? If you're watching this, it dropped on Wednesday. We tape on
Yeah.
Thursdays, but 1,800 pages, 101 recommendations. No finger pointing at the government in terms of corruption, but certainly
A lot of
there
wrist
were
slapping.
some. Yeah, I mean, no
It's like
surprise there.
culpable, perhaps is the word we're looking for. I mean, I think, I didn't see it. What? I mean, the RCMP took a big hit for sure. I think,
FinTrack? How much did we spend on FinTrack?
yeah, I know. I just think there's it just seemed like a snowballs, just a bunch of things that just like what? All these different things that came together that made it possible for it to happen.
I think it's
And
very convenient, though, when they said that nobody actually actively turned a blind eye
yeah,
in a corruption way.
right.
But I'm like, how much money poured into the provincial budgets and city budgets for that matter, like the unintended byproduct of this, like the amounts of dollars that were piling up, and even the luxury goods. Let's take it off the government and point to accountants and lawyers and luxury goods suppliers. But the car, how Vancouver became the number one
Mm-hmm.
extraordinarily uber high end car dealer in the world. I mean, come on, come on. People driving around in Maseratis with N's and L's on them. Come on.
Well,
I
I think
mean,
Sam Cooper was doing this story early, long before the commission was even implemented. I think even I was in office, and I think there was a fear of being perceived as racist. There's a lot
yeah,
of
I remember
some
that.
of the apprehension by politicians, and it's a valid argument. It's a slippery slope when you start doing policies and
Yeah.
going after a thing that may be dominated by one community. It could be perceived as racist in this situation. Certainly, sometimes that's what the empty homes tax was. That was one of the concerns about bringing that forward. And we certainly have seen hate towards ethnic minorities grow in the last few years. So you've got 2 things that happened in those 3 years. 3 years, empty
But
homes
let's dial it
tax.
back though. But let's
So
dial it back though, because I get that.
sure,
And
yeah.
that is shitty. I'm sorry we're gonna get our E on this one, but that is shitty for sure. However,
Mm-hmm.
duffel bags full of $20 bills at casinos. That is money, the proceeds of fentanyl sales, the proceeds of drug sales that were causing people to die daily, escalating deaths, tainted drug supply. That money laundered through casinos, which I remember a time when casinos first started in this jurisdiction, and the maximum bid on any bet was $25. The people who changed that and then saw this, there was a way to dial it back without pointing to one ethnic group. There was a way to cap things in a way, and it doesn't take a genius to know there's something going on here. And Sam Cooper and John Waugh, as well as a number at the CBC as well, were actively showing that there were blinders on where this particular piece of the puzzle was concerned. And it's white collar crime. I mean, George, let's call it what it is. You will get a parking ticket and they will take it all the way to collections. They'll thump your ability to borrow with your credit rating being hit by your
Mm-hmm.
parking tickets. But you can be active in white collar crime and offshore money and moving stuff around like a shell game to avoid taxes. Like, we need to check boxes on private documents. It's not hard to figure out following the money. It's not that hard. And I believe personally, I believe this, and I know that. I mean, I have realtors and lawyers and accountants all like, what? But I think there should be checks and balances there. And if money is laundered through something knowingly, because these people know what they're doing, It is a loophole, but flag it. If you
The
see
people
something,
receiving
say
it, you mean,
something.
or the people giving it? People
All the
receiving
way
it.
along the process, all the
Mm.
way along the
I
process.
think
If
there's
you
been a
see
lot of
something, say
attention.
something.
Yeah, there's been a lot of attention on casinos, and you kind of brought that up, but it's actually other areas
Yeah.
that have been more
Other
significant:
areas for sure.
cars,
I don't blame
houses,
just casinos.
apartments.
Totally. But I don't think it needs to be
Laundering
a
is.
racial thing though. That's my point. There's a way to come at this that has nothing to do with the ethnicity of the person who is perpetrating the crime.
Yeah.
It is a crime, period. They said FinTrack was getting upwards of 500,000 reports per year, and only 2,500 of those being investigated, resulting in just a handful of charges. Like, what? Oh my God, how many people went to a casino with a duffel bag full of money? Let me tell you, you and I will walk through a casino, our pictures taken, they videotape us, they could follow us throughout the whole casino. They track every single thing you do. Are you telling me that they don't know where the big money? They got a high roller table in the back where they're serving special food to the people that are dropping a couple $100,000 on purpose so that they can then wash their cash, take the chips, look at that as a really manageable
Mhm.
loss, take a couple of $1,000,000, go buy a house with cash that's clean and park it. That's what's been happening. Drug money turns into real estate, and that's broken our province. Like, I'm really passionate about
Wow,
it because
I
it
wouldn't.
didn't
I
hit
mean,
me, but it,
I
it
don't
hits
think
people.
it's just. I don't think it's just the money laundering that's caused our
I
home
didn't
prices
say
to
it was
skyrocket
just
at one
that.
point.
I
Yeah.
didn't say it was just that,
Okay.
and nor did the Cullen Commission, but it definitely has impacted it without question.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things that there's a multitude of things that have gone wrong. I mean, we look at if I go back to the empty homes tax, which represents in Vancouver about less than 5% of the homes that are uh, that are empty. You bring in this tax that costs $30 million to manage or whatever. You have to. What is the solution? What is the problem? What is the solution? And so, in the case of money laundering, what the Cullen Commission provided us was, here are the solutions. They're pretty obvious. In fact, much easier, say, than dealing with empty homes. I think because empty homes, you just got to build more homes, and that's not easy. With the Cullen
No.
Commission, and what we learned is that it was really about policing. It's really about
Yeah.
you just got to track this stuff, and you can't let and this mentality of whoever you are to accept chunks of cash for whatever you're purchasing. It must not raise alarm bells. But as you said, all those people were maybe reporting this cash, but a lot who were receiving that cash did not. And I think that they didn't implicate any politicians, but
No.
certainly individuals selling whatever to launder that money, whatever it might be, are one of the main reasons and the problems with this. And so I think that as a result of this, I'm sure David Eby, he's got to stop blaming the BC Liberals. He's got to
Did
focus
you
on,
see?
okay, what is the
Did you
policies
see?
I need to create to solve this problem and moving forward?
Did you see David Eby's press conference yesterday?
No, I was lying in bed
Okay.
sick with COVID.
Oh, right.
Poor
Of
me.
course you
Oh,
got
poor me.
poor George, poor
Poor me.
Georgie. Nobody's ever called you that before.
Oh, yeah.
I watched David Eby's press briefing, and I found it incredibly refreshing to hear him uh, acknowledge a timeline in a way he didn't, just because so many politicians do what you just said. Well, if the Liberals had been
Mm-hmm,
awake, had they not been asleep at the wheel, that kind of thing. There was none of
mm-hmm,
that. It was more about how astonishing it was when he first read Peter German's report and really felt the magnitude of what was at play here. And
mm-hmm,
he specifically pointed to the media, the investigative journalists, who without them, and because the media piece here, and please, if you're listening to this podcast, think about this, because this is why the media is important. This is why it's important that you don't do, the media, because
fake
these
news. Ugh.
right. The hardworking investigative journalists put themselves in harm's way here because
Yep.
there are some shady bad actors involved in what is happening, what has happened, and they put themselves and they. I mean, Sam Cooper. I'd love to know how many FOI, Freedom of Information documents, Sam Cooper had to go through to cultivate and connect the dots on the money laundering, and John Waugh as well. Like, these guys are
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable, and they're just two of many. But David Eby
Yeah.
was very specific in thanking those journalists who were at the forefront of this to
Tenacious.
bring it to citizens, because the Peter German inquiry and now the Cullen Commission, and both of these were solely created because the public demanded it. These are
Mm-hmm.
not government. These are not partisan. And it's not any one government. It's all government. How to take action in a meaningful way. As you said,
Mm-hmm.
as a politician, as a former politician, you spoke to this just in this podcast, because when you're in it, you have to think about, not targeting one segment of society too broadly, because you can cause unintended consequences
Mm-hmm.
on innocent people. Like that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Eby really leaned into that, and what needs to happen moving forward. And as you said, it's about having better policing and boots on the ground here in British
Mm-hmm.
Columbia. We cannot rely on the federal government to fix what's broken in the Vancouver model, even though it's spreading across the country. Yes,
You
the
know
feds
that
need to be
in a
involved, but
civil society, it's not always just about the number of police. And this is the issue in Vancouver with just crime and all that stuff that we're hearing about. It's the perception that you'll get caught doing
mm,
something illegal stops you
yeah,
doing something illegal. It's just this
right.
sense that if there are rules and there is a system in place that could get you in trouble, whether you're the person receiving the cash or you're the person taking the cash and giving it to people, that seemed to be where everything fell apart. That there was no feeling by either the people who were laundering the money that they were going to get caught, or the people
No,
who accepted the cash that they would get caught. That it was acceptable to do this because there was so little policing going on. The rules were vague. There was just lots of ways to get away with it, and that makes, I'm sorry, that's what civil society breaks down. And so we could talk a lot about that. We have talked a lot about that, and it's
we
certainly a
have.
big issue in Vancouver's coming election. If you don't follow the rules, or if you don't have at least the perception like that you create these rules, you create this to have a civil society, you need a legal system and a judicial system that people don't feel intimidated by, but at least that there's a feeling, a sense of order. And I know
Yeah,
that people go,
guardrails,
"Oh, how
guardrails,
dare
right?
you? Oh, order!
Yeah.
You sound like a fascist." No, it's not about that.
No.
It's that you look at how you raise kids. You got to create boundaries about in order for them to not fall off a cliff or whatever. It takes time, and once it's ingrained in people, they stop being that way. And that is going. It seems to be okay. This whole Cullen Commission, and then you look at crime on our streets. It's like, and of course, then I get attacked, or anybody who says they would like to see more law and order is like, oh, how dare you? You're taking away our rights. It's like, oh my God, no. It's like we have to live and share this world together. It can't be chaos. There's
Yeah.
ways to solve that, and this is a microcosm of what happened in this Cullen Commission. Is really a microcosm of one specific area. It proves that if you don't have rules and you don't enforce the rules that are already vague or whatever, you got a multitude of things that are wrong in order for this to not be a problem. This is what happens. This is
Yeah.
where we end up. And I
I
think
bet you the
that's
people that come at you about law and order are equally as pissed off that all of these things have happened, right? They don't like
yeah,
what's happened, but they don't want what
I
fixes it.
know.
It's like the definition
Well,
of insanity to
that's
continue
they.
doing what we're
I guarantee you, those people who will yell and scream about policing on the downtown east side will say, "Oh, but yeah, the money laundering should be policed." Absolutely.
exactly my
Where
point.
where where
Exactly
do we?
my
Yeah,
point.
where do
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
Where it's not black and white, but it's certainly, you should. It kind of has to be. The legal system is kind of black and white. There's not a lot of gray area unless there's precedent setting cases.
Our
That's how the whole system works.
We can go into the justice system in another podcast and talk about it for the full 30 minutes, because, oh my God, is it ever busted? It is really super broken. But I want to get to some municipal politics here, if
Mhm.
we could, George, because October 15th, 2022, fast
Yep.
approaching, like we're counting down. What are we? July, August, September, October, 4 months yesterday. We'll be there, which is
Well,
also your birthday. For your birthday, pre-birthday, I'm going to announce your Twitter handle in case people don't follow you on Twitter. It is George
underscore.
underscore Affleck. Sometimes we just call you underscore. I'm at Jody Vance, Jody with a Y, at Jody Vance on Twitter. Follow us both. Follow Unspun Podcast. Of course, you're listening to this podcast, but share it with your friends. We're
Mhm.
unspunpodcast.com. We were at the
Yeah.
Orca for a long, long time. It's on pause. We're continuing. with our podcast ongoing. You can always find us at unspunpodcast.com, because we are going to make sure you're informed before you head to the ballot box when it is civic election time. Let's focus our attention in on Vancouver City
Mm-hmm.
Hall Broadway plan. There was another conversation, many conversations about the Broadway plan. Should it be held over until after the election, George? What do you think? Colleen Hardwick, who is running for mayor of Vancouver, says it should be put on pause, be put back to staff until after the election.
Well, I kind of gave my solution last time, but or was the time before, I forget. But let's just chop it into chunks. We'll chop it into chunks. Let's do the section that we need to deal with, most importantly between Main and Granville Street. Let's lob off anything east or west of that because
Great
it's
idea.
Controversial. So
Great idea.
I think, and then also you could bring it up. Don't go all 5 blocks off on each side. Do 2 blocks. That's it.
Right.
So I don't, but I don't. And that might be what happens. But I think there's going to be so many amendments and so many revisions.
Well, weren't there 43? Weren't there 43 amendments?
There were 43 communications people. One for every communications person. So they're going to have amendments.
Yeah,
I think it'll pass. I think the Green Party's behind it. I think Kennedy-Stewart's behind it. I don't know where ABC Party stands on it. To be honest, they seem pretty vague. They talk about.
I haven't heard anything from them in a long time. Where are they?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Ken Sim's invisible at this point. Maybe that's intentional. I think it's a political move because he's topping the polls on the right side of the spectrum in politics. For now, but Colleen Hardwick certainly has the momentum, and with Bill Thielman joining her team, and they announced their slate. What's interesting, I think, and you've talked about this a lot, is like do your research on these candidates. When I got into politics, I had been the chair of my kids' PAC for 5 years. I'd been on several boards as chair, as a director. I'd done a bunch of other things in the community. And I felt like it was my time to, I was actually intending to run for school board because that was a logical move. But then Suzanne Anton asked me if I'd run for council. And I said, okay, but I own a business. Can I do both? And anyways, what ended up was that Suzanne lost and I won. But it's a busy job. It was hard to run a business and do it. But I look at some of these candidates and I'm going, I don't know what you've contributed previous to this. And I worry that there's so many egos being driven here that this is an ego-driven campaign. I'm not inspired by most of the people running. I don't feel like they've given enough to the community to justify them being on the slate to be voted for. I just think you have to do your time in the community, and also that helps you win if you have a base. Me being the chair of False Creek PAC, which is False Creek is where I was my kids were at school there. It's across False Creek from where I live because there's no school in Yaletown at that time, and the neighborhood would be perceived as quite left of center. And so I think, and if you look at the polling of my first election, which I won, I was a surprise winner, is I topped the polls in that riding, in that section. I mean that area, unusually by like the rest of the NPA, my party weren't even close. But right. I was up there. I got all these votes, a couple thousand extra votes that I got in that neighborhood because people knew who I was, and then they respected me. They thought, "Oh yeah, George, yeah, he's been on PAC. I know my kids know him.
You walk the walk.
He seems like a good guy.
You are a good guy.
If I agree with his party, but I'll give him my vote." So I got thrown a few of those votes.
That's why I'm in the podcast with you, because you're a good guy. I don't always agree with you, but I'll do a podcast with you. 176.
I'm getting my justification by getting COVID before you because I'm looser than you in the COVID thing.
There you go.
This is my see.
I'm pulling you into the mushy middle. I'm like, you just found middle ground on the Broadway plan. I'm super impressed with that. I think I'm rubbing off on you a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the messy park. Speaking of messy middle, messy medians, messy meridians. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can you even see over the grass in Yaletown?
My God. I was in, Yaletown is so bad. Anywhere you go.
So bad.
They just
I can't see when I'm turning.
Yeah. No,
I can't see when I'm turning.
It's a policy that the parks have and the city has not to cut grass anymore, to let the nature do its thing and create areas for bees.
Do they not see the nature all around us? Do they not see the mountains right over there? There are mountains right over there. We have valleys, and
Well, and if
Fraser
you're
Valley
gonna
is
do,
full of.
it has to be intentional. There has to be a you can't just let it go wild. You have to actually plan. I think Patrick O'Connor, who we know quite well, and he tweeted out some areas in New Westminster that have done intentional wild areas that they to create the areas for bees or
Yeah,
nature to do its thing. But
they're
it's
not
still
parked.
manicured. It's still
Yeah,
manicured in a logical way for the purposes that you're trying to achieve. It's not just wildness.
I'm knocking on your door, George.
Hello.
Bees don't use grass.
Rats do though. Rats love
Rats
it.
do. Great places for trash to hide, even a syringe or two. You know
Needles.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Oh yeah.
Oh
I've seen.
man, I wouldn't go
It's going to
running
be an
through
odd
the
issue.
tall grass in downtown. I wouldn't.
Yeah. No, of course not.
Wouldn't.
And if it's not dog poo, it'll be a needle. I see like Dave Payson, I think, is who follows us and tweets at us a lot. He's on that subject. He's running for park board for NPA. He's on
Yeah, is
the
he?
median thing. I think people, you find your issue, and that's a good one. You look at John Clarides and his smashed windows. He's not running for office, but really, if you find that issue that really resonates, it can be as small as something, the medians in the city. Then people start going, hey, that guy really cares.
Yeah,
And it's that simple, really. If you're running for office, find the things that matter to people, and just
and be
be the voice
strong
for
on
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to go back to bed, and you've lost your mind because we're over 30 minutes, COVID, dude. So honestly, get better, buddy, and
Thank
let me
you.
know if I can drop off some soup at your door.
Okay. Bye
Peace out.
bye.
Bye. Bye. Sleepy time for George. Bye.